Okay, so we're back with brioche. This is where we left off. My brioche dough has hardened up because of all the butter in it. So the paper should peel off pretty nicely. And we're gonna make a few things out of this brioche dough today. I think I'm gonna make some rolls. So I think, honestly, I'm gonna make them about the same size. And I'm not sure how heavy these are. I'm not weighing them out, but I think they'll be pretty nice size rolls. It does feel pretty heavy though. Here, maybe I'll take a little bit of this one, put it over here with this one, try to even them out. All right, so we're also gonna make some hamburger buns, because after all, one of the best hamburger buns out there is made of brioche. And why is that? Well, brioche is heavy in butter, so with being all that butter in there, it's gonna add to the richness of your hamburger. This is why Wendy's has gotten on the brioche bun thing, and so has Culver's. Obviously, this is something that their customers like, so they're making it. I'm going to start off with the little rolls though. So we're going to put down a little bit of flour, have a little bit of flour out as an extra. And I've got this piece of dough, and it's fairly cold. I mean, I just pulled it out of the fridge. So what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of smash it up a little bit, just to kind of make it a little bit softer. And we're going to roll it on our cutting board here, just to try to get these to round up. And what I'm doing here is just like I do with any roll. I'm pushing with my thumb, pulling with my fingers against the cutting board. So as I do that, I'm not pressing down on the dough. I'm clawing my hand around it. And what that's doing is it's causing it to stick to the board, and it's forcing the skin to go underneath. So you can see it stuck to the board just a little bit. That's okay. Dab that little bit of flour. Again, I'm just going to kind of bring this together, just kind of breaking that initial hardness of the dough from the fridge. You don't want this dough to be too hard. Yeah, so we'll dab that one. Brioche is best when it's good and firm, good and cold, but not too hard. We don't want it so hard that it's going to be difficult to work with. Now, you see this defect right there? That defect is because it's too cold. So we're going to let that one warm up a little bit. Put a little flour on my fingers. Bring that one together again. This time try re-rolling it again. See, in the process of re-rolling it, it's warming the dough a little bit. Yeah, that's much better. Now, when it comes to rolls, this is called an à-tête. An à-tête means little head. So I'm going to take my hand here, and I'm going to put some flour on my hand. I'm going to roll this dough with the edge of my hand to create a large side and a small side. So essentially, it's going to look a lot like a chicken drumstick. I'm making sort of a neck, as you can see, in the dough. And I keep reapplying flour to my hand so I won't stick to the dough. Now we don't want to break this off. What we're going to do next, put a little more flour on my fingers, take the big section, I'm going to poke a hole in it, just like that. I'm going to take that small section and push it up through the hole from underneath. And what they mean by à-tête is a little head. So essentially what this looks like is the little bald head sticking up through a hole. Now I'm going to flour this a little bit, but I'm going to stick it right here into a little container and let them proof inside the container. The container will keep this dough from spreading out when it proofs. It'll force it to come up, and these will be probably 3 inches tall when they're done. Normally there are special tins for this, but I don't have any here at the house, so I'm using just some ramekins that I happen to have in the cupboard. I don't worry about them sticking because honestly, they have so much butter in them that the chances of them sticking are very slim. So let's do another one. We're going to roll this with the edge of our hand, roll this with our pinky. And it literally looks just like a chicken drumstick when it's done. Again, we're going to take the big one, poke a hole right in the center, and push the little head up through the hole. Just kind of straighten it out a little bit. Dab it in a little bit of flour. I'm going to put it right in my ramekin. So those are going to go over onto a sheet pan. These are going to have to proof for a while. And because this dough started off cold, it's going to take longer to proof than average dough. So be ready for the fact that it's going to take a long time. Once I set this to proof, I'm going to go off and do some other things today and get some other things done. I'm figuring 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours to get this to proof correctly. Go make the hole, take the small part, push it up from underneath. Just kind of even things out. Dab a little bit of flour, and we'll put it right into the ramekin. Okay, so now that we have those done, next step is we're going to make some hamburger buns. Hamburger buns are much larger. Obviously, it's a much bigger piece of dough. Again, I'm going to kind of knead this dough a little bit to kind of soften it up a little. Normally, a good size hamburger bun is about 4 ounces. If you have a large hamburger, it's about 5 ounces. So we're going to roll these up. Again, dragging them along the table. Pull, push, pull, push, pull, push. Letting it stick to the table. The idea there is that it sticks to the table a little bit, and that pulls the skin of the outside of the dough down underneath, making a nice smooth top. Again, I have a defect. So what that tells me is it's a little too cold right now. So I'm going to flatten it back out. I'm just going to kind of gather everything to the center here. This helps the dough warm a little bit by 1 or 2 degrees Fahrenheit. As I do it again, much better, but still not perfect. It's still a little on the cold side. Much better. Okay, so we're going to let these proof just as is. Now, the way about a hamburger bun is that this is not going to do for a hamburger bun. So once these proof, they're going to spread out and they're also going to rise. Then right before baking, I'm going to tamp them down. I'm going to knock the air out of them. That's going to flatten them, and then they're going to rise up again in the oven. But by the time they're done, they'll be about 2 inches thick, perfect for a hamburger. We'll be able to slice them in half and put a big burger right in the middle. So I'm going to stick those over on the paper. You can see how this dough just breaks because it is still very cold. So I'm going to flatten it out a bit. Gather everything to the center. Put a little bit of flour on my hand and try to roll this up and see if it's still too cold. That looks great. So that one's going to go on the pan. And don't get me wrong, this is still pretty sticky dough. Even though it's still cold, I still use my bench scraper quite a bit. So the reason I'm putting flour on my hands and not on the table is because I want it to stick to the table a little bit. I don't want it to stick to my hands. So this is pretty good. Let's get that a little bit more to get that outer skin a little tighter. Be nice if our burger buns were nice and smooth on top, and I think that'll give us a nice smooth exterior. So we're rolling this up, try to get a nice looking exterior. Yeah, very nice. All right, so these are all gonna go and proof for a while. As I say, I'm expecting 2.5 hours, a good 2.5 hours. It's gonna take a while for this to proof. I'm gonna reuse my paper here. Just cover them. When we come back, once they're proofed, I'm going to be egg washing them, and we're going to be then sticking them in the oven. These will be considerably larger once they've had a chance to proof completely. I may get some plastic, just lay some plastic over this. But these need to proof completely, so give them the time. Find something else to do with yourself for the time it takes to proof. We don't want to underproof this dough. We want to make sure it's proofed correctly so that you get the maximum volume out of these atettes and out of these hamburger buns. If you underproof and you get too impatient, what will happen is they'll be small, they'll be dense, it won't be the same. So I'm going to go ahead and cover these a little bit more, and we'll come back and we'll take a look at how they look before they go in the oven. We'll put some egg wash on them. Okay, so it's been 3.5 hours. Sounds like a lot, but when it comes to brioche, remember it started off cold, so it's not going to warm up very quickly, but this dough has puffed up quite a bit. These are the hamburger buns, so I am going to squash those down. Just nice and even. These are the atettes. Now I'm going to go ahead and egg wash these, and egg wash the hamburger buns too. Hamburger buns you don't have to be as careful with, but with these atettes, you don't want to put too much egg wash on. So you just want to moisten the surface. You don't want to have any drippage going down the sides. If you drip down the sides, this egg wash will act as glue, and it will keep your atettes glued into their containers, and you will end up not being able to remove them. So be careful when you're putting egg wash on these. We're just looking to moisten the surface, just what we see, so we get some good color and some good browning. All right, so that's that. Now the hamburger buns I don't have to be nearly as careful with. And even though I squashed down these hamburgers, it looks like the hamburger buns are too flat, but the reality is they're going to puff up in the oven. They're going to do just fine. This will also be a good chance with the hamburger buns if you're thinking about sesame seeds on them or something like that. This would be the good time to do it. While they're wet with egg wash, you could put some sesame seeds on top as a decoration. In fact, Brad, let me grab some sesame seeds real quick. I keep some sesame seeds around the kitchen just for this kind of an occasion. All right, and those will make some fine hamburger buns. All right, so we're off to the oven, and these will be done in just a little while. We'll bring them on out for the camera so you guys can see how they look. here they are. We've got brioche atettes. Just have to get them out of here while they're still warm. It's best to unmold them as early as you can because they start to get soggy if they sit inside the ramekin for too long. I like to cool them upside down, but it looks like they came out just fine, nice and brown all the way around. Hamburger buns, good color all the way around. These will make fine hamburger buns. These guys are a little bit smaller. It looks like more for a slider, but this will be a decent size for a normal burger. All right, so brioche, it's a wonderful bread. It's absolutely incredible. What makes this really special is that as you pull it apart, it just comes right apart. I mean, these are really hot right now, but this is when they're best. They're just delicate and wonderful. So I look forward to seeing yours. Go ahead and post pictures of your work, and we'll all get a chance to see how you did.